A very good day to our lovely lecturer, Mr. Mohammad Said bin Othman. We are from Group 2C and I'm the group leader. First of all, let us get to know our fellow group members. Starting off with me, Kavdish Nargunasilan, as the group leader, following by Aina Sophia binti Karur Nizam, Wu Xingle, Navishni Narayanasamy, Lim Zi Yun, Zhang Suchi, Ma Dingding, Liu Wenlei, Hazira binti Abdul Razak, Amira Hana Irina binti Muhammad Usari Amir, and last but not least, Yi Jianjian.
Question 1. Explain the social contract in light of Western philosophy and thoughts and Eastern spiritualism and religion. Alright, now I'll be explaining the social contract in light of Western philosophy and thoughts. According to the social contract theory, people live together in society under the terms of an agreement that create moral and political rules of conduct. Philosophers dating back to Socrates have attempted to outline the ideal social contract and explain how actual social contracts have changed throughout the years. One of the most influential approaches to such questions in Western political philosophy asserts that the state exists because of the rational agreements of its citizens as represented in an actual or hypothetical social contract among themselves or between themselves and a ruler, and that the state's powers are generally defined or circumscribed by that rational agreement. The classic social contract theorists of the 17th and 18th centuries, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau believed that the social contract is the mechanism by which civilized society, including government, emerges from a historically or logically pre-existing stateless anarchy, or state of nature. In a state of nature, everyone has a right to everything, and there is no impartial power to stop aggressive people from stealing what others need to survive. The upshot is an all out battle in which human life is solitary, impoverished, ugly, brutish, and brief. As a result, a social contract is required to resolve conflicts that develop as society grows and individuals become more reliant on others to meet their needs. They exist to keep the situation from devolving into chaos. They provide direction and a set of norms for others to follow. Explicit social contracts, such as laws, and implicit social contracts, such as raising one's hand in class to speak, are both possible. The United States Constitution is frequently used as an example of an element of America's social contract. It specifies what the government is permitted to do and what it is not permitted to do. People who choose to live in America agree to be controlled by the Constitution's social contract, which outlines moral and political commitments. Regardless of whether social contracts are explicit or implicit, they provide an important framework for social cohesion. Aristotle and other noteworthy thinkers inspired the moral values and philosophy of Western civilization. Aristotle's writings even aided the Philadelphia delegates in drafting the new American Constitution. He believes that everything has a purpose or goal and that everything has been made to achieve that goal. He equates happiness with human flourishing, which he believes may be achieved by exercising the function that separates humans from the rest of nature, reason. Aristotle, known as the father of Western logic, was the first to devise a formal framework for thinking. He recognized that any argument's deductive validity can be established by its form rather than its content, as in the following syllogism: until the rise of modern propositional and predicate logic, 2,000 years later, Aristotelian logic reigned supreme. Aristotle's various investigations are set against the backdrop of his emphasis on excellent reasoning. Aristotle's natural philosophy uses reasoning and observation to make broad, causal claims. As a result, Aristotle distinguished two categories of virtues. There are two categories of people: intellectual and moralists. Information, wisdom, and most significantly for Aristotle, prudence or practical wisdom served as behavioral guides, that is, a person acted prudently based on the wisdom earned through time through the acquisition and testing of knowledge. Prudence is defined as common sense or practical knowledge, and it assists people in making the correct decision at the right moment for the right purpose. Only the really prudent person, according to Aristotle, could possess all of the moral virtues. The opinions and research of Aristotle have contributed to a greater understanding of how people are able to enter into a social contract. People have accepted and developed implicit and explicit social contracts based on their common sense and practical wisdom. These are the people driven by self-interest in the sense that they will only sign a contract if they believe it will benefit them socially, concerned for the well-being of others if only because they know that the benefit they expect from the social contract will be contingent on their willingness to provide the same benefits to their counterparts, and in terms of how they view their own interests, the interests of others, and the fair for moral standards that should guide the pursuit of those interests, they are rational or reasonable. Memory, reason, understanding, docility, shrewdness, foresight, circumspection, and caution are all aspects of Aristotelian prudence. To put these talents to good use, one has to lead them towards a useful goal, which is still true now as it was in 4th century Athens. Those involved in the transaction were considered virtuous only when the aims and means were aligned and operated in harmony. This virtue in turn would lead to the happiness envisioned by Aristotle and the goal of his entire system of virtue ethics. As a result, social contracts created for the welfare of the people, both implicitly and overtly, have proven to be made reflective of Aristotelian beliefs. Thank you. Now I will pass on to my member to explain more on social contracts in light of Eastern spiritualism and religion.
Thank you for passing the floor to me. Good day to you, Doctor. I'll be presenting on the social contract in the light of Eastern spiritualism and religion. Confucius had ideas about the social contract. Men are born with diverse natures, according to Confucius. Some people are intelligent, while others are not. The smartest and dumbest people cannot be changed, but those in between can be transformed by practice and study. So the gentlemen are concerned about the things other than their own well being, whereas little men are exclusively concerned with themselves. Confucius felt that human nature is a complex combination of traits stretching from self interest to noble causes, with the energy and self willingness to some gentlemen or women contributing to the society as the primary obligation. Furthermore, the Tao of humanity, or the Way, was the basis of Confucius' purposeful legacy, which established humanity as the response to rampant lawlessness or anarchy. Confucius believed that humans are naturally good and that the best method to avoid inhuman behavior was to make them better or more human in order to strengthen social contract. He came up with three options that enhances the social contract, which we will look at next. Well, the three options that has been said by Confucius to enhance the social contract is that number one is wholehearted sincerity and truthfulness. Number two is the constant mean, and last but not least is doctrine of expediency. Well, the Confucius' first option that closely relative to social contract is wholehearted sincerity and truthfulness, which is meant more than sincerity, because even liars can be convincing. Confucius' definition of sincerity was more similar to loyalty, and that the element to which mankind had to be faithful was truth. Confucius' goal was to combat the blind loyalty that had contributed to the spread of chaos across China. For example, if a subject was asked for suggestion or advice, the subject had to be truthful, even if the ruler did not agree with the advice, as happened to Confucius when he resigned his position as Minister of Justice in Liu. It's possible that the consequences for ethical behavior in modern organizations are self evident. Another instance is that reporting unethical activity as a whistleblower or even speaking up for the truth in a meeting can be difficult, which is why living virtuously necessitates disciplined practice and the support of like minded others. As we can deeply understand the meaning of social contract, which is respecting the legal and moral rights of others, has been nicely explained by the first option of Confucius in the light of Eastern spiritualism and religion, which is truthfulness and sincerity. Moving on to the next option by Confucius, which is the constant mean, which refers to a balance between excess and deficiency in both an existential and a practical meaning, which obviously shows the inner meaning of the social contract. He claims that we should take the middle path, avoiding extremes of thinking and action through ritual acts. We cannot claim to live a balanced existence until we demonstrate it through good works that sustain personal and collective order. Confucius and his peers believed that properly observing this key relationships was essential for social good and would invoke divine favor on the people, which would eventually enhance the true definition of social contract. The philosophy of expediency, which also determines socially contracted behavior, was Confucius' third approach to the way of mankind. Righteousness, according to Confucianism, is the virtue that tempers compassion and love so that people can live together not only peacefully but also justly. Righteousness contained a practical problem solving approach that aided the flourishing of politics, diplomacy, and civil administration, or simply known as social contract. Confucianism's expediency, or qian, which is in Chinese, is a notable feature. Ultimately, Qian allows people and institutions to prioritize responsive action over ritual and serve as the way to align what people do with who they are. First, allowing them to become more human. For the business person, it might mean not fleeing the tawdry world of the marketplace, which is cheap and nasty, but recognizing the humanity within it. Well, this explains clearly the inclusion of doctrine of expediency in social contract from the perspective of Eastern philosophy.
Another important characteristic of social contract in Eastern and Western is the integration of personal and professional life. A person could not act one way at home and a completely different way in public. For Aristotle, the virtuous person saw the truth in every kind of situation. Once acknowledged and recognized, the truth could not be denied without compromising honor. Similarly, Confucius taught that a gentleman will not, for the space of a meal, depart from humanity. In haste and flurry, he adheres to it; in fall and slumber, he adheres by it. Character was not ultimately what defined the virtuous individual's family, city-state, or nation. Instead, it was the individual's transformation, through education, into a different kind of being who will act virtuously even if no one is watching. When the person concentrates on the means used to achieve an end, eventually the means become a way of life even more important than the end itself. The integration of personal and professional life has two effects: motive and awareness. Motive is the willingness to do the right thing because it is the right thing, even though there may be no perceived benefit. Awareness is the ability to see the ethical dimension in all events, choices, decisions, and actions. Confucius would say, it is the person who can broaden the way, but not the way that broadens the person. Confucius introduced his interpretation of Ren. Ren is to love humility. Ren as love is based on the feeling one has towards his own parents and brothers. Filial love is crucial because Confucius believed that gratitude and affection toward their parents enable them to willingly accept parental authority and the hierarchical relation between parent and child. The idea of Ren as love is the expansion of the roots of filial love. The young should behave with filial piety at home and with brotherly love abroad. Eventually, all within the four seas are his brothers. Like Confucius, Aristotle fully acknowledged that the intrinsic goodness of love, philia, which is generally translated as friendship, is the central topic in several treatises. Human beings are political or social animals, tending by nature to live together with others, while the will to live together is friendship. For Aristotle, it is friendship that creates family connections, brotherhood, and common sacrifice, and it is the greatest good of states to have and to preserve friendship. Both Confucius and Aristotle advocate the ethical status of love, but their discussions differ in certain significant aspects. The family love that Confucius emphasized is filial love, the love of children towards their parents. On the other hand, the family love Aristotle emphasized is parental love. For Confucius, cultural refinement is the process of expanding one's filial love to society so that one may willingly accept the constraints of life. For Aristotle, this is a process of the habituation and development of practical wisdom. Confucius viewed the process of cultivation as mainly a matter of education. The Chinese word for education, 教育, is composed of two words, teaching and nurturing, and this education is not merely for the purpose of conveying knowledge, but also for shaping correct behavior patterns and internalizing them as part of their character. Aristotle agreed with Confucius that human beings are not by nature ethically good. The cultivation of moral virtues starts with habit by doing good things repeatedly. For Aristotle, we should be brought up from our very youth to find pleasure and pain as it is appropriate. Since a good upbringing is a matter of luck, Aristotle's cultivation of virtue is dependent on luck. A good upbringing implies that one has a good ethical training environment. Accordingly, habituation is more an issue for the society rather than for the family. Law must prescribe their upbringing and practices. Aristotle pays more attention to the function of legislation than of the family in moral education. This is in contrast to Confucius' view of habituation that focus on the expansion of filial love through an emulation of models that surround them, rather than on the role of law and punishment. Social contracts emerged, persisted, and evolved in response to the various cooperation problems humans have faced throughout history. Cooperation problems comprise both coordination and competition problems. The former are solved by creating common knowledge of coordination rules within a group. These solutions emerge from within group dynamics. The latter are solved by norms that punish free riding and doing so align individuals' interests with the group interests. They are largely selected as a result of between-group competition. Current naturalistic accounts of the emergence and evolution of social contracts focus mainly on how within-group dynamics leads to solution to coordination problems. A more complete picture emerged when we view social contract as solutions to cooperation problems and include between-group dynamics that select solutions to competition problems.
Hi everyone, I am Aina Sophia. With my partner Zhang Suchi will present question 2. The question is, what is the most important quadrant in the influence or interest matrix and why? Firstly, what is influence or interest matrix? Influence or interest matrix is a classified project stakeholders by their interest and influence in an engagement. Stakeholders have power, whether it is the formal power from a position of authority or social power from an ability to persuade others. A stakeholder can support or oppose change. In a consultative engagement, those with higher power are likely to be the most useful supporters or most dangerous opponents. Generally, they wish to seek a high return on their purchase of company shares.
So, how can you use this in your organization? Stakeholder maps can be used to understand who's involved in a project or organization and how these people, organizations, and aspects are connected. Stakeholder maps provide 4 different types of value. First, they allow you to zoom in and focus. You can use the tool to evaluate your competitors from your customer perspective, or you could illustrate who the external stakeholders are that influence your business. Secondly, they also help you to zoom out. Depending on how you use them, stakeholder maps can also help you zoom out and see who you might need to include or what opportunities or risks you might have overlooked. Third, they help you design resilient systems, products, or services. With a stakeholder map, you can easily identify relationships or partnerships that could be formed so your organization leverages several parts of a system and doesn't rely just on one. Lastly, they help you communicate. They can help you communicate with your team and other stakeholders complex information, problems, or systems.
So, the task confronting an organization's management begins with understanding these multiple and sometimes conflicting expectations and ethically deciding which stakeholders to focus on and in what sequence. That is stakeholders prioritization. Stakeholder prioritization helps to actively gather information about all key stakeholders and their claims. There are many ways to prioritize stakeholder relationships. One of the ways is with the metric of their power and interest. As the graph shows, stakeholder priority can be expressed as a relationship between the stakeholder group's influence or power and the interest the stakeholders takes in the relationship. Firstly, we will discuss the low power and high interest. Because of their relatively low influence abilities, these stakeholders can do little harm to the project but still are interested in the progress or ultimate result of the work that the team is performing. Thus, it is important to keep them on the loop and well informed, for example, through regular meetings. Typically, just keeping them informed and updated on the project is sufficient. For example, ensuring they have access to a public page of your website and then updating that page regularly is enough interactions. You can also send out newsletters or press release to this type of stakeholders. Examples for this type of stakeholders include community groups and others that may be affected by the outcome of your project. Usually, who with low interest are disinterested parties, but this kind of stakeholders are those that as a project manager need to strive to keep satisfied because they have power over your project and you must ensure that their needs are fulfilled. This group of stakeholders might include colleagues or individuals in an unrelated department.
Thank you, Anna's detailed presentation. Here is Zhang Shuci. I will take the floor to present the last two categories and answer the question. The third one is the high power with the high interest. The stakeholder in the upper right corner of the matrix are that you need to keep satisfied, engage, and consult actively. These are the big dog stakeholder that will exert major influence over the project on a regular basis and will control the key decision within the project and also has a strong ability to facilitate the project task and motivate others to take action. These folks include the funding agency upper management. So in conclude, when we meet these kind of stakeholders, we need to manage closely, fully engage these people, and make the greatest efforts to satisfy them. For example, when you are in a company, your boss' reputation is tied to the productivities of the people they lead. Your boss may also have the power to greenlight or shoot down your project. This means you should manage the relationship closely, communicate frequently, and take advantages of the feedback. So in that way, you can handle the workplace relationship well. The last one is the lower power with the low interest. The stakeholders with both low power and interest cannot be ignored, but no need to spend too much time to communicate with them. So motivating them is sufficient and ensure that their power and interest level are not changed. In the workplace, that the functional managers or other project managers, they appear to require the low maintenance, may actually become demotivating for the project members and could influence the project by impacting the project deliverable. Now I will give an example of the influence interest matrix. In the supplier side, a small farmer or the seasonal supplier would fall in the lower power, lower interest category, particularly if that farmer was selling variable retailers products from its fields. However, if the same farmer could connect a huge provider like Kroger, he would sell his customer its entire crop. This relationship placed the farmer in the lower power, high interest category, meaning that he will most likely have to make the price adjustment to make the sale. When we have detailed talk about the four category, I think you have the right answer in your mind. So the question, what's the most important quadrant in the influence interest matrix and why? The high power, high interest quadrant is the most important because it represents the stakeholders who both are highly interested in their relationship with the firm and has a high level of the power or influence in the relationship. So in conclusion, as the work we do and the project we run become more and more important, we will influence more and more people. Some of these people have the ability to undermine the ongoing projects, others may be strong sponsors of our work. Stakeholder management is a process by which we identify our key stakeholders and win their support. Stakeholder analysis is the first stage where we identify and begin to understand who is the most stakeholders. The next step is using the influence interest matrix to prioritize them. The last stage is to understand what motivates our stakeholders and how we need to win their support. Think about their motivations, prioritize, and the likely wills of the project. With the information in hand, we can craft the approach. Of course, everyone wants to focus the primary efforts on those identified as a high power, high interest, as we have described above. That's all for my part. Thank you.
Question 3. Can a social contract be covered by a legal framework only without the need for an ethical foundation? Good day, doctor. My name is Wenlei, and now my group members and I are going to present question 3. Can a social contract be covered by a legal framework only without the need for an ethical foundation? So first, why need a legal framework? Social contract enables the existence of the political body and sovereign rights. However, it wants them to have action and will. It also needs to establish the legal framework. The reason in law is the expression of the public will, the guarantee of justice in the social society, and the condition for the establishment of the social organizations. In the society, power will replace the desire, and obligation also makes people have a sense of the rationality and responsibility, which means people can get freedom in the political and social sense only if they obey the laws they have made. In other words, the law is not a constraint on people, but rather a guide to the people. It gets them to pursue the equality and freedom. So the legal framework is important. In daily life, we can see that the legislative power must belong to the people. But there is a question that may arise in our mind. Does the legal framework violate the principle of the social contract? In my opinion, the legislative power belongs to the people, and the legislator is a representative of that power. The next page, I will give an example to follow my answer. Let me give you an example. On 2001, China's food safety law has not been published, and Sunlu milk powder company illegally added the melamine to the milk powder. In this issue, from the perspective of the shareholders, the company's goal was only to increase the profits, and they ignored the company's need to provide the services that was beneficial to the society. In other words, this also shows that the legal framework is used to protect the public interest and regulate the company's adherence to the social contract principle. What's more, the legislators who make the law, I think, should be the most intelligent and rational people, and free for the private emotions, thinking about the problems from the everyone's perspective, and protecting the public interests so that the legal framework can meet the principle of the social contract. However, this is an overly idealized situation, so the legislative process must concentrate the people's wisdom rather than rely on the individuals. And this part is about why social contract need an ethical foundation. There are important distinctions between the moral principles and the social contract. The social contract comes from the moral principles but not equal to the moral principles, because only moral principles participate in the emergence of the society, and the social contract is an unpreventable product of society's emergence and development. From this point of view, a moral framework is required for the social contract. Apart from that, only the correct ethical foundation can bring about the correct legal framework, and human behavior must have an ethical foundation as a guiding light. Then let us back to our example about the Sunlu company. China improved its food safety law after company ignored the law and added melamine to the milk powder. This also shows that the managers have the responsibility to ensure that their behavior is in line with both code of ethics and law and in the best interest of the primary and secondary stakeholders. In addition, the extent of the moral foundation lies in the direction of the group interest, which is the reason why different employees in the company can cooperate with each other. And then, next page, I'm going to do a conclusion on Russell's point of view. From the perspective of social contract, right and wrong are the product of the trade-off between the direction of group interest, which comes from the functional requirements for the operation in organizations. And right and wrong are actually the basic moral principles. So only when they are transformed into an ethical foundation that can be described in language and words, the initial legal framework will appear. Also, the both ethical foundation and legal framework paving the way for the social contract theory. So, in fact, the basis of the social contract theory does not abandon the traditional ethical foundation, a problem that Russell may pay more attention on the ethical foundation in ideological and power construction. So, in conclusion, ethics is a concern with human society and is also a category of awareness in humans' heart. Is gradually formed in the long-term process of the social practice. So therefore, Russell's important view on the construction of the social contract is the cooperation and promotion of the ethical foundation and legal framework. So thank you. Then I will pass to next presenter to explain more on ethical issues in daily life.
Good day, Doctor. I'm Navishini and I'll further be explaining question 3. So, I 100% agree with my friend who said that according to Roosevelt's view, there's a need for a balance between legal framework and ethical foundation to create an efficient social contract. So, before we analyze the significance of ethics in regards to social contract, let's discuss the term ethical foundation. It involves the knowledge, skills, and dispositions in order to develop and maintain integrity in one's life and work. It also includes thoughtful development, critique, and adherence to a comprehensive and holistic standard of ethics, as well as commitment to one's wellness and growth. Ethical foundation generally can be classified into 3 different levels, which are basic, intermediate, and advanced levels. One example of a basic ethical foundation is to appropriately question institutional actions which are inconsistent with ethical standards. So, for example, in the corporate world, by law, controllers are responsible for cash flow and the financial status of a business. Assuming the controller gives instruction to junior accountant to manipulate the expenses of a business in order to establish a good financial status of the business, the junior accountant, by right, should disobey the instruction given as it is unethical. But what happens if the junior accountant has no ethical foundation and blindly follows the instruction? The answer is that the ultimate goal of social contract cannot be achieved, as this is because from the junior accountant's action, only the business will benefit but not the stakeholders. For example, investors and creditors, as well as the accountant himself. Now, let's look at a real life example that clearly demonstrates the consequences of neglecting ethical foundation in regards to social contract. So, the Enron scandal perfectly illustrates how a lack of ethical foundation will lead to the fall of world's top company. In this case, the top management abused their powers and committed many unethical activities through manipulation and implementing improper accounting treatment, just for the sake of hiding the actual declining business performance from the stakeholders. Some may argue that the CEOs, CFOs, and auditors involved in the Enron scandal are already punished by the legal framework of the social contract, and hence there's no need for ethical foundation to be involved. However, it is undeniable that the root cause of this Enron scandal is the poor ethical foundation of an individual, in this case the top management in the first place. If at all the top management had strong ethical foundation, they would have restrained from committing unethical activities, and this means that Enron would have dodged bankruptcy. Millions of innocent investors, the Americans, would not have lost their life savings in Enron, and also thousands of employees would not have lost their jobs. So, from this example, I would like to emphasize that there is the need for ethical foundation to function in tandem with the legal framework for a social contract to be valid. Ethical foundation enhances law by outlining acceptable behaviors beyond government control. Legal framework does not cover certain qualities that a business needs in order to flourish, such as loyalty, maintaining loyalty with customers. So, for example, let's say a production department head need to purchase material to manufacture products. This is where ethical decision making will take place. If he decides to purchase low quality material just to reduce cost, then it is highly likely that the customers will not repeat order more than once. However, if he applies utilitarian concept based on the greatest good for the greatest number of people, then he will decide to buy high quality material for a reasonable cost. This kind of ethical decision making is not covered by legal framework, and there is no law or even punishment for not taking such actions. Actually, there are other key factors that a business need that are not covered by legal framework, which are integrity, honesty, truth, faithfulness, fairness, and righteousness in all transactions with its stakeholders. This is highly important in order for businesses to sustain in the advancing business world. If ethics are poor at the top, that behavior is copied down through the organization. With this, I would like to reiterate that social contract cannot be covered by legal framework only without the need for ethical foundation. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Madindi, and thank you Navashini. I will continue to present the same question with her. Thomas Hobbes proposed that a society without rules and laws to govern our actions would be a dreadful place to live. Hobbes describes that a society without rules as living in a state of nature. In such a state, people would act on their own accord without any responsibilities to their community. Life in a state of nature would be Darwinian, where the strongest survive and the weak perish. A society in Hobbes' state of nature would be without the comforts and the necessities that we take for granted in modern Western society. The society will have no place for commerce, little or no culture, no knowledge, no leisure, no security or continual fear, no arts, little language. The social contract is unwritten and is inherited at birth. It dictates that we will not break laws or certain moral codes and, in exchange, reap the benefits of our society, namely security, survival, education, and other necessities needed to live. According to Prologue 2007, there are 5 main reasons that laws are required in society. The harm principle, to prevent the serious physical assaults against others that would be victimized. The offense principle, to prevent behavior that would offer those who might otherwise be victimized. Legal paternalism, to prevent harm against everyone in general with regulations. Legal moralism, to preventing immoral activities such as prostitution and gambling. Benefit to others, to prevent actions that are detrimental to a segment of the population. So next part is how can social contract theory assist law enforcement in moral dilemmas. While social contract theory does not tell people how they ought to behave, it does provide a basis to understand why society has implemented rules, regulations, and laws. If not for the social contract theory, our understanding of these rules would be limited. Specifically for law enforcement, social contract theory is important to justify the power that law enforcement can exert over population as a whole. The power imbalance held by law enforcement is part of the contract that society has agreed upon in exchange for security. When the contract can be problematic is when the power used by law enforcement exists what is expected by society under the contract. So next part is about social contract in business. There are 4 examples here. The first is a changing business climate. Society as a whole expects corporations to take an active role in social, political, and environmental issues. Not only do customers expect businesses to obey the law, but they also expect businesses to reinvest in their communities and to help struggling people and non-profit organizations in meeting their needs.
So the next point is about cooperative philanthropy. To answer the call for more involvement in the local community, businesses can draw on social contract theory to interact with the society. Businesses can show that they are concerned with their communities and appreciative of the revenue streams the community provides by allocating resources for community projects, by volunteering in local characters or schools, by donating products, and by running environmentally friendly ad campaigns. The third point is about corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility is an idea closely related to corporate philosophy, but is focused more narrowly on creating sustainable and renewable business solutions. When businesses employs a CSR strategy, it does so in response to the wants and needs for its stakeholders, including customers, employees, and the public at large. Last point is about corporate governance. An important concept of the social theory contract in the business is flow through making sure that the business is holding up its end of the bargain and not just paying lip service to the community. Corporate governance is therefore important for keeping corporate philosophy, CSR, and the overall social contract theory at the forefront of the business's strategy plan. In conclusion, social contracts can be explicit, such as laws, or implicit, such as raising one's hand in class to speak. Indeed, regardless of whether social contracts are explicit or implicit, they provide a valuable framework for harmony in society. Social contract theory is undoubtedly with us for the foreseeable future, but so too are the critics of such theory, which will continue to compel us to think and rethink the nature of both ourselves and our relations with one another.
Question 4. Name the three components of the triple bottom line. Throughout the years, many organizations have adopted corporate social responsibility, in short CSR, which is a philosophy in which a company is not only expected to produce a reliable product, charging a fair price with fair profit margins, and paying a fair wage to employees, but also they are expected to care for the environment and acting on other social concerns. The question is, how can corporations and stakeholders measure the extent of these CSR programs? This is where the triple bottom line offers a way. The triple bottom line is an accounting framework which went beyond the traditional measures of profits, return on investment, and shareholder value to include environmental and social dimensions. Triple bottom line reporting can be an important tool to support sustainability goals. It was invented by John Elkington in the 1990s as an effort to strive to measure sustainability by encompassing a new framework to measure performance. Triple bottom line is important because it affects everyone. It does not just focus on business and corporate leaders, but also social communities and the business's impact on the planet. This accounting framework provides a more sustainable future that considers both social and environmental sustainability, and also a healthier work environment that focuses not only on employees, but the organization's standing in its surrounding social environment. The triple bottom line is an accounting framework that incorporates three dimensions of performance: social, environmental, and financial, which is commonly called the 3 Ps: people, planet, and profit. I am going to explain further on one of the dimensions, which is profit. When talking about profit, people fail to realize that the economic impact is a much wider idea than just financial impact. This dimension explains about the positive and negative impact an organization has on the local, national, and international economy. It also measures how well an organization uses its available resources, whether they are using it at their full potential effectively or the other way around. This variable deals with the bottom line and the flow of money. It could look at income or expenditures, taxes, business climate factors, employment, and business diversity factors. This includes creating employment, generating innovation, paying taxes, wealth creation, and any other economic impact an organization has. We could see that in a capitalist economy, a firm's success most heavily depends solely on its financial performance or the profit it generates for shareholders. In the past, many businesses only focus on the figure it produces on the financial statement. Higher profit indicates that a company is doing well, so strategic planning initiatives and key business decisions are generally carefully designed to maximize profits while reducing costs and mitigating risk. However, things are going differently now as purpose-driven leaders are discovering that they have the power to use their businesses to affect positive change in the world without hampering financial performance. In many cases, adopting sustainability initiatives has proven to drive business success as it could result in an enhanced brand perception and reputation by showing others that the organization stands for more than just making profits. All companies are concerned about their financial standing, but businesses committed to the triple bottom line look at profits in terms of not just what they can do for shareholders, but also how they can help the broader community. In this model, a company helps stimulate economic growth and create wealth by, let's say, example, compensating employees fairly and supporting local suppliers with its business. It also makes financially prudent but ethically driven decisions about how and where to source materials, products, or labor. The general goal of a sustainable business strategy is to positively impact the environment, society, or both, while also benefiting shareholders. Business leaders are increasingly realizing the power of sustainable business strategies in not only addressing the world's most pressing challenges, but driving their firm's success. For instance, a company will have a higher employee retention rate by making the work environment more pleasant for workers. Or they could also improve productivity and reduce costs through sustainability efforts. Here are some examples that we could get from companies that use the triple bottom line framework. So here we have sportswear brand Nike and also ice cream brand Ben and Jerry's. So Nike has refocused its strategy to be more energy efficient, including investing in innovative new materials and launching sustainable processes to make and remake materials for products. The company runs a number of recycling initiatives, including the Reuse a Shoe program and Nike Grind, which involves using discarded or donated waste materials for new products, which helps them in reducing the cost of material used for production. As for 2018, around 75% of Nike apparel contains some form of recycled material. Next, for Ben and Jerry's, they have a long history of supporting social and environmental issues. They also have become a certified B Corporation, a designation that demonstrates that it's meeting high standards of performance when it comes to things like employee benefits, charitable giving, and good supply chain practices. Recently, the company has committed to goals that focus on improving racial equity at work. They have counter-attacked the employment issue that has been going on for years. From these real-life examples, we could see that practicing sustainability helps in reducing the cost of production and increasing the profitability of the business.
Good day, doctor and everyone. I'm Ye Jianjian. Today, I will be explaining about one of the three P's of triple bottom line, which is people. So nowadays, as we know, companies are attempting to maintain a degree of corporate social responsibility, which is called CSR. In other words, they're trying to be good citizens in the global community while maintaining their profits. So the component of people in TBL concept offers a way for a company to measure its social impacts as well as its commitment to people. So firstly, who are the people? So in TBL concept, it includes all the stakeholders. When you think of the word stakeholder, the first word comes to mind may be shareholders, who are the key decision makers of the company. However, TBL concept goes far beyond that. In this case, people are not owning employees, and they're not owning shareholders, but also the wider community in which a company operates its business. So, for example, the governments, the trade unions, creditors, communities, all of these people are people in the TBL concept. It's also important for us to know why should a company care about these people, why it is beneficial for us to manage our stakeholders. So the answer is that they can have significant impacts on our company in both positive or negative ways. So some of them are even powerful enough to make a company collapse. For example, the government. And for negative consequences, I would like to share a real-life example that happened in 2010 at Foxconn. So at Foxconn factory, 80 employees in China attempted suicide. The reason is overwork and job-related exhaustion. The high-pressure work environments and aggressive management caused this tragedy. So Foxconn had to pay for that. They have to pay the families of these workers the compensation, and even worse, the reputation of Foxconn had been damaged a lot. So because it had been viewed as an unethical company. Therefore, from this event, we can conclude that if the company does not take care of their stakeholders, for example, employees, the people, the company must pay for that. And those people may damage the reputation of your company and affect your business in other ways. Now, how taking care of people can benefit organizations. So the benefits are many. For instance, increase employee satisfaction. Happy employees tend to be more productive at their work and are more likely to stay with the company. In addition, customers are more likely to buy products from an ethical company, which means customer loyalty may increase. Also, it helps the company to build a good image and a good reputation. Lastly, firms with strong social responsibility are more likely to have greater access to finance and less capital constraints. However, is CSR always good? The answer is no, since doing good costs lots of money. Therefore, firms have to analyze both costs and benefits and compare to them before determining is this really worthwhile. Moreover, risks are involved while implementing these projects, CSR-related projects. For instance, it may contradict with some of the business practices. Lastly, I'm going to talk about 2 strategies for a company to create social value. So first, engaging and promote ethical business practices, which means improving ethics in workplace. For example, gender equality, equal pay. They can establish a code of ethics or offering ethics training for employees. Moreover, form strategic partnership with NPOs. So it can be effective to boost a company's social impacts because sometimes it directly tick the world's most pressing challenges. An example would be McDonald's. Its funding and support of Ronald McDonald House. This entity provide housing and other financial support for families whose children are undergoing treatment or suffer with some disease. So that's all from me. Thank you so much, and I will pass the floor to the next presenter.
Hi everyone, I'm Singler. I will be explaining the last component of the triple bottom line, which is planet. This component is concerned with making a positive impact on the planet by an organization. Operations managers look for ways to reduce the environmental impact of their operations, whether from raw material selection, process innovation, alternative product delivery methods, or disposal of products at their end of life. The overarching objective for operations managers is to conserve scarce resources, thereby reducing the negative impact on the environment. This also includes reducing its carbon footprint, usage of natural resources, toxic materials, but also the active removal of waste, reforestation, and restoration of natural harm done. According to the Environment Statistics 2021 of Malaysia, the quantity of scheduled waste or toxic waste generated by industries recorded 7,185.2 thousand metric tons in 2020 and 4,013.2 metric tons in 2019. This was contributed by power plant and water treatment plant industries which are categorized as essential services. This result tells us different industries of Malaysia have contributed to the pollution, then affecting the environment and climate change at staggering rates. While businesses have historically been the greatest contributors to climate change, they also hold the keys to driving positive change. Undeniable, many organizations of Malaysia start to chart sustainable growth by balancing business goals with environmental needs. Some examples of organizations that use the component planet include the Malaysian Recycling Alliance and Petronas. The Malaysian Recycling Alliance, or as known as MARIA, which comprises the country's 10 leading fast-moving consumer goods companies, such as Coca-Cola, Colgate, Dutch Lady, and also Nestle. So, MARIA's mission is to collaborate with the Malaysian government and other stakeholders to jointly improve collection and recycling rates for a greener, cleaner Malaysia and a more sustainable waste-reduced future. For instance, in January 2022, they have targeted to recycle an initial 5,000 tons of plastic waste by year-end. Maria also pledged to reach a minimum recycling rate of 25% or 20,000 tons of plastic waste of members' packaging volumes by 2025. On the other hand, Petronas aims to collaboratively reduce environmental impact by transitioning to lower carbon energy solutions and deploying innovative operations and technologies. Petronas also invested over 83 million ringgit towards the conservation of Imbak Canyon since 2010 in partnership with Yayasan Sabah Group. Moreover, Petronas Chemicals Sendirian Berhad or PCG has introduced the New Plastics Economy or NPE initiative, a holistic program aimed at transforming plastic waste into valuable resources to be recycled back into the circular economy. However, these efforts are far from a done deal. As what Lisa Jackson, the Vice President of Environment Policy and Social Initiative at Apple said, to protect the planet, we must show others that impossible can be business as usual. This bottom line should help measure and improve an organization's commitment to reducing its environmental footprint. Large organizations tend to have a bigger effect on the surrounding people and environment. So expanding their typical bottom line by considering both people and the planet can help improve people's life and the planet's well-being. We have to protect the planet's natural resources and preserve biodiversity and the ecosystems that support many of our communities. Always bear in mind that environmental conservation is a key priority while running a business. To wrap up our explanation of these questions, triple bottom line is important because it affects everyone. It does not only focus on business and corporate leaders, but also social communities and the business impact on the planet. A company must take into account on the triple bottom line as this accounting framework provides a more sustainable future that considers both social and environmental sustainability. So that's all for these questions. Thank you.